Welcome to She Moves Bravely, a podcast dedicated to empowering women through stories of resilience, courage, and success. I'm your host, Shantae Dent. Today, I have the honor of introducing you to a woman who moves bravely. Her name is Ally Berthiaume. Ally, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited about hearing your story. I like to start with the guests jumping right on in, letting us know, what's your story? What have you overcome? How did you overcome it?
Oh my gosh. So this is such a great question because it's so open-ended. I feel like I could go in any direction, but
Yeah.
I will stick to this story, which is of a little imaginative, strong-willed girl who knew at the age of 5 what she was meant to do in the world, which was to be a writer. And she knew that in her soul, but didn't have the language to communicate that to others. And along the way, you know, being a writer when she grew up stopped being cute. And so a lot of the adults in her life reminded her that she needed to do something more practical and encouraged her to find another path where writing wasn't the breadwinner and wasn't the thing that paid the bills. And she listened to that and she got a little lost along the way. Um, and flash forward to 2018, a whole bunch of stuff blew up in her adult life. She was on her way to a divorce. She was living back home with her parents. She had just miscarried her second pregnancy. She had a toddler at home, and the 9 to 5 job where she was promised a promotion got ripped away from her. And that was like the last straw. And with everything in adult life looking the opposite of what she thought it was supposed to look like, she realized that the universe was trying to give her an invitation to go a different route, start over, rebuild. And it was only up from there. And that's when she finally listened, took the leap, and started a business and became the writer she always knew she was going to be.
Look at there.
And they all lived happily ever after.
They all lived happily ever after. The end, period. We're done. Oh, so many points to extract from what you shared, Ally. I admire this connection. I see it in the lives of many people, and I think it's more prevalent than we think, where those initial desires have so much to do with who we become when we finally find that right place, that alignment of. There were hints when I was a toddler. There were hints during elementary school that I was destined to be, the writer. Now, we're definitely going to press rewind in a second, but I love that you were guided and you returned, as some would say, to your first love, to your true calling. And that's a beautiful place to be, because we both know there are many adults living, and we're not going to assume they're not necessarily enjoying their life, but I do believe there's a sweet spot when we can be in alignment with who we were, created to be. And a lot of times that does circle back to where those early ages, what were we good at? What were we naturally interested in? And somewhere along this journey called life, we get off track. And you started by saying, initially, it was the voices of others, individuals discouraging you. And that happens often. It's sad, but it's the reality of our stories.
Yeah.
I am curious because when you talk about some of the trials that you experienced, how were you able to navigate those transitions? Like, can we come into the heart and the mind of Ally? You mentioned divorce, miscarriage, not getting this promotion that you were promised. How did you navigate through those experiences?
Well, I think I navigated through those experiences using previous horrible experiences that prepared me.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, while divorce was stressful and hard and heart-wrenching for a lot of reasons, as a person who had been through a number of other unhealthy relationships before that, as somebody who had been sexually assaulted in my early 20s, divorce felt kind of like just a really messy breakup.
Mm,
Um, and I kind of knew that there were worse things. Not that divorce isn't horrible, but for me and some of the other things that I had experienced, I just knew I was going to make it. I knew I was going to get through it. I knew it was just a blip on the radar. Like,
mm,
I didn't know how long the pain was going to last. I didn't know how long it was going to take to transition to the new normal, but I knew that it was going to work out. I knew that we would land somewhere on the other side of it and it was going to be okay, or as okay as we could make it. And that I was going to be okay because I had been okay every other time. Um, so, and similarly with like the job thing was gut wrenching, I think only because of the timing.
okay.
Um, because it was one more thing about life in that moment that wasn't working out. And I had been relying on that promotion, not because I loved that job. I did not. It was not soul fulfilling whatsoever. But as a now single earner household with a toddler, trying to reestablish myself with only my financial picture, that promotion in my mind came with a little more financial security now that I was going to be on my own. Right. And here I was facing the unknown of going through a divorce and not knowing what that looked like, and going through being a mom with shared custody and not having my little boy every single day of the week. It was a lot to swallow. Um, but as my therapist said in a session after I didn't get that promotion and while all these other things were happening, she said, sometimes too much is too much.
Mhm.
And I thought, well, what does that mean? I'm thinking it is too much. Now I don't have this promotion. But what she meant was, if you got the promotion, now you got to learn a new role. Now you have to transition into another space. You have to be more giving of who you are because you're learning in a new space. You're going to be asked to do more things, more responsibility. Do you actually think right now, where you're at, that a promotion is actually as good for you as you might think that it is? And
I,
that's what she meant by too much is too much. I mean, had they promised me the promotion for like 2 years at that point? Yeah. So did it feel crappy for them to pull that out from under me and tell me they were giving it to an external candidate that I then had to walk into the interview and then had to train when she got there?
oh
I
my,
can't tell you how awful all of that stuff
oh
felt.
yeah, I
Oh
I
my
can
gosh.
only imagine. I can.
Yeah, it was rough, but she wasn't wrong. She wasn't wrong. I didn't need that one additional thing. And quite frankly, the universe had my back then too by not giving me the promotion, um, because it knew that bigger things were up ahead, and taking that promotion would have made me feel too responsible to the promotion I had just been given in order to work to walk out and actually fulfill the thing that it had been trying to tell me the entire time.
Yeah.
Um, so, and even with the miscarriage, to touch on that, I had never experienced a miscarriage before, and I'd never experienced that type of loss. But loss wasn't new to me. And the feeling of powerlessness wasn't new to me either, because I learned powerlessness when I had been assaulted, and I learned how to work through powerlessness in my recovery after being assaulted. And the one thing that was really critical to moving on with the miscarriage was that when I had been assaulted, it took me probably 3 years to come out openly with my family and let them know that I had been date raped while I studied abroad in Australia. With the miscarriage, I didn't wait to name it. As soon as I was struggling, as soon as I started to bleed and I didn't know where that was going to lead, I told people. I said, this is what's happening. I asked for prayers. I said, I need your help. Like, and as soon as I knew that the pregnancy had been lost, I called those same people back and I said, this is what's going on. I put language to it much faster than I would have a decade before. And I even named, the child that I lost, even though I was only 9 weeks pregnant. Um, and I shouldn't say only, but in the miscarriage space, there's some debate, I guess. Sometimes how long we've carried gets lessened when it's early loss, versus when it's full term. Um, but nonetheless, that heartbeat had beat and I had heard it. at one point. And even though I lost that life, they didn't make it to this earthly side. They're my other child, and they deserved to be honored as such with a name. But I wouldn't have known any of those things had I not been through prior experiences.
You know, Ally, when I hear you talk about how you've navigated through each of those transitions of your life, I can clearly see how one experience prepared you, allowed you to be resilient, gave you the mindset to handle what was to come. And isn't that life? You
Yeah,
know, I have the honor of connecting with various women with different stories and different perspectives, and there are many common threads. But what I would extract from your story and the story of the many women that I've connected with is a growth mindset. Hence
yeah,
the title, She Moves Bravely. Knowing that we don't desire the situations, we say often, no one gets married looking forward to the divorce.
yeah,
Um, you touched on the assault. That's a part of my story. And sadly, statistically, it's a part of the story of many. And even how you handle the miscarriage, learning from the recovery process of assault, how can you extract that growth mindset, that process to help you navigate through a miscarriage? And I have to touch on, I love that you've honored the child, and that
mhm,
is sacred, it's beautiful. If you can't tell, I'm sitting here in awe because a lot of women, people, period, we go through life and we get hit hard. And the easy way out, surface level, I'll say surface level easy because
right,
it's really not easy, but surface level, we sometimes think the easy way out is to dismiss or deny or keep on living our lives and hoping that things will eventually get better without being intentional with our healing and with our recovery. And so I'm hanging out in this space for a moment because I want to drive in that lesson. If there's anything I would repeat over and over again, it would be for everyone to decide that even when it's hard and heavy, to process, to be open to allowing someone to walk with them through this difficult season, family, friends, a therapist, just knowing that you do not have to go through life alone. You should open up to someone that you can trust that will give you insight and encourage you along the way. I'm very grateful that you were able to rely on individuals who were there for you. You knew who to call, you knew what to say, you knew not to hold it in. That was brave of you, that was bold of you. Now, when you talked about the position, and I love what your therapist said, I agree with it. You know, there are a lot of times we're praying for promotions, and I don't think anyone should just sit and wait and hope that things will work out for them without doing the work. And I believe that sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes when the door doesn't open, it's not a bad thing. Maybe
mm,
what you were desiring and what we're praying for isn't what we need, at least maybe not
yeah,
in that season. And so when you did not get that promotion and you did another hard thing, you trained the one who did get that position, commend you for that. How long did it take you to get into alignment with your first love, writing?
yeah. So it's really interesting. When I moved back into my parents' house during the separation, I moved back into my childhood bedroom. And even though it didn't look the same, it was the same room. And it just felt like this. In the beginning, it felt like failure that I had moved backward. And then there was this one day that I got home from work and my parents had found this folder. And I opened up the folder, and inside the folder were all of these things that they had kept, I guess. There were letters of recommendation from like my guidance counselor in high school to get into a college. And there was another letter from like an internship supervisor from college who really liked the work that I had done there on site. And there were some photos of some memorable things. And basically, this folder was chock full of reminders of how successful I had been in certain areas of my life in an earlier capacity. And I remembered looking inside the folder and thinking, where'd she go? Like what happened to her? Um, and I thought, I gotta get her back. Like she would not have let this happen. You know? She knew what she wanted to be. She knew which direction she was heading in. She had conviction. Uh, and there was a little bit of a bitter sweetness to it, right? Because there was a feeling of loss and a feeling of having done something wrong or not having done something right. There was also a reminder that whoever that was still a part of me. She existed. She just had been like kind of watered down for a period of time. And one of the things that I felt myself going back to in this like new in between stage, this purgatory between my old life and my new life, was writing. I went back to journaling. I went back to figuring out how could I tap into this thing that I used to love and I used to want to do. And it was hard because of all the additional stressors. And certainly half the time when I had my son, there was only space and time to be fully 100% present with him. But I realized, man, I got half a week that I don't have him. And if I just sit here and I do nothing, I will be broken. Thinking about what he might be doing and is he having his bath and is he eating okay? And how is his day at daycare? Um, so people, interests, taking care of myself, to go back to something that you just said, processing, looking inward, facing the hard stuff, was all really critical. And within that first year, I threw myself out there and I joined a mom's blog and started blogging. And that was how I found my way back into writing, was to put my words out there and blog for others, other moms. Um, and then the other kind of interesting thing that happened within that year was that The Greatest Showman was a big movie at that point.
Yeah.
And I went with my brother on a day that I didn't have my son. And I sat there and I just felt like everything inside of me lit up listening to this music and watching this whole thing play out. Not because I really related to like the bearded woman, but I related to the idea of a dream
Mm.
and wanting to pass that dream and that legacy on to the next generation. That was the part of the story that I resonated with. And I was like, okay, like I've got a kid at home. Part of the reason that some things went awry inside of the marriage, I would say, had to do with the fact that I wanted to show my son how to live bravely and how to live authentically, and I didn't feel like I was doing that. Um, so now here I was separated. I'm watching this movie, and I'm just like verklempt, like I'm just overwhelmed with all the feelings. And I leave, and I think this whole movie is like my battle cry. Like, and then I was like, all right, I'm doing it. So I set up my own website as an author, like with all of the aspiring projects that I had. And I started listening to podcasts and reading books and talking to people. And all of these doors opened up. Like when I let go of the idea that I needed to be in a traditional job, when I let go of the idea that all of these picture perfect ideas of what it meant to be a woman in adulthood with the house and the kids and the fence and the dog, when I let go of all of that and I just kind of went like this and I said, I release all these other things. Like, what do you, God, universe, spirit, source, whoever, have in store for me? It was just like a domino effect. Boom, 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 boom. All the right things pointed in one direction, and that was to go out on my own. So I would say things fell apart in late 2017, but I formed my business in the fall of 2018. And I walked out of my day job in April of 2019. So it was fast and furious.
Fast and
And it's now 2024 and I haven't looked back.
wonderful. So many brave moves, Ally. Your first brave move that comes to mind is when you were in your room going through your childhood papers, photos, writings, accommodations, recognitions. I imagine someone could have looked at that material and threw it away, shredded it. I don't want to remember. Even though those were the good old days, I don't want to remember because I'm not her anymore.
Mm.
And that could have caused a lot of pain, remembering how bright and beautiful life was. And look at me now. But you pressed in and you leaned into that greatness. And I like what you said, you were still her, you felt like the watered down version. I often think about that where sometimes we feel lost and disconnected to who we are, who we were created to be because of our experiences, those painful experiences, the unfortunate seasons of our life. And I say that it might feel like you don't matter or you're not called to this great purpose anymore, but you feel buried, right? Like I kind of see it like it's just been a lot of dirt covering you up. All those crazy experiences. Oh, that was just the dirt covering you up. You're still there. You still exist. Let's just go ahead and get the bulldozer. Let's remove all the dirt, all the debris so you can get ready for your great reveal. And hearing how you navigated through that season by looking at that content and remembering what it was like in reading what the counselor, the guidance counselor wrote about you. I love it where you're just like, where is that little girl at? Like, I love her, where is she?
Yeah.
And again, some people can stop there and not explore and not continue the journey of saying, oh no, she's still in me. And it's time to resurrect the greatness, the gifts. And how often is it we hit a brick wall and then we begin to think about, okay, maybe there's more. This is the pivotal moment to go in a different direction. And I love that you did because our goal is to encourage women to move bravely. You might not have the life that you envision because we all have a dream. We dream it, we desire it, and sometimes it comes to pass as we envision, sometimes it doesn't. What really matters is that we don't stop. If we have to go in a different direction, be open, be flexible, don't give up on the greatness inside of you. So I'm excited to hear, Ally, that you did not give up. You sought out what you could do with what you had. And you even mentioned the timing. I'm highlighting the obstacles because sometimes we endure an obstacle and we stop, right? Like this is my excuse. I'm going to use this obstacle to justify why I am not going to take another step. But you navigated through your schedule, the times, the weeks you had your son, and you figured it out and you took a baby step. You started with a blog, and I love that. Like, what can I do today? Where can I start? You started with a blog. And I want to hear more about what you're doing with your writing. How are you helping others and working with individuals?
Yeah. So when I left my job and I started my business in April, well, when I left my job to go out on my own full time in my business in April of 2019, I originally got started in copywriting and content writing. In reality, I just said yes to any writing project that anybody wanted to pay me for because I was so excited to be making my passion for writing my living and to finally say I did it. Like, and it's paying the bills and it's keeping the lights on and all the things. There was a real high in that. And then, as we all do in anything, we evolve. And I evolved somewhat quickly. I knew when I got started that content writing and copywriting was not where I wanted to end up. That was just a way to get going, to build up some momentum, build up some confidence, get my name out there. I knew that I wanted to work with others on their books, specifically telling their stories of the hard stuff. I have a psychology degree and a mental health background in addition to a writing background. That was for a long time going to be my bread and butter, and writing was going to be on the side because I was listening to all of those stories about have the practical thing. So in undergrad, I got the second degree. For my master's program, I began in a different degree before I went back to writing. And so all of my like internship experience and like work experience in college years was really in mental health, community mental health. And it's come full circle because I rely on those tools for my work with my clients now as a book coach and ghostwriter. And I specifically love to work with people on writing their memoirs, the books about their lives. Um, and our lives are full of hardship. Every single one of us. None of us go through this life unscathed by adversity or challenge or hurt or loss. And a far larger amount of us than any of us realize experience trauma.
Mm.
At least one time, if not several, in several different ways throughout our lives. And I have a rare and unique ability to sit in that space. I like to call it dive into the trenches with people,
Yeah.
to see them, to hear them, to bear witness while I guide them through the writing process. I can hold it. I can hold that space, maybe because of the things that I've been through myself. But, you know, I work with people to own their story, to honor their story, to eventually liberate themselves of the story and experience, and to turn it into something that is not going to just make them feel empowered for being the person who survived everything that they've gone through, but also impacting other people who have been there and who need to hear their story because they need the hope or they need the reminder that they're not alone. So it's light work mixed with writing work, mixed with a little bit of psychology.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm a unicorn. I'm not sure, but I guess the technical way of saying it is I help people write books.
I like the two words you just mentioned, empowering. That's that first step, writing this book. It is empowering for your clients. And beyond that, it's impactful. You are allowing people to make an impact in the lives of others. And to me, that really is the beauty of the world we live in. It's the beauty of connecting with individuals. It allows us to understand that we're not alone. It feels like that often. I'm the only one going through this and I'll never get better. But you're giving individuals an opportunity to share their story. And so when someone picks up that book, they are inspired and they have the hope that they need. I often say, we're often the light at the end of someone else's tunnel. And that is a great honor. We are like-minded in that area. I know that there are times when people are not comfortable sharing the intricate details of their story. And I don't blame anyone who doesn't feel like that's their thing. But for those of you, listen up now, because if it's you, you know it's you. For those of you who know without a doubt that your experience is to be told, connect with Ally, take that brave step. And it's incredible that we have opportunities to not have to figure everything out, reinvent the wheel. You have someone here, this incredible woman who's been through some things. She has her journey, her story. She chose to use her expertise, her passion, and pair it with her purpose. She's done it, and she's here to help you do the same thing, to write that book, experience empowerment for yourself, and impact others. And we both know the power of writing, the power of books. We don't have to physically travel the world, but your book will go beyond you, further than you could
100%.
ever go. And so if you know that it's you, or you have a friend or a family member who's been talking about it and they haven't acted upon it, you'll want to connect with Ally. As we end our time together, what golden nuggets can you leave for our audience today?
I truly believe that being ourselves is the bravest act that we will ever perform on our earthly journey. Because from the moment that we are young, we are inundated with stories and narratives from either the people around us or the culture or communities, whatever it is around us. And yet that is where we get lost. And that is where we end up perpetuating things in our world that are harmful to others. Truthfully, I believe that the way forward in bringing us together and seeing each other for all that we are is to first be truthful and honest about ourselves. So do that work. Start with you. Get to know you like you would get to know a loved one behind closed doors. Love on yourself more than you would love on somebody else behind closed doors. Um, Take yourself on dates, get your human design chart, have your palm read, go to a restaurant by yourself, see a movie on your own, take a road trip, like spend time with you so that you know what you're about and just lean into showing up as authentically as you can for you. Your world will change and so will the rest of ours.
Thank you, Ally. Thank you for showing up today, being authentic, vulnerable with your story, and being that individual who I believe will inspire many.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.